All right, welcome to episode 65 of the 214 Sports Show. Another exclusive interview for you here on the podcast, and I'm glad to be joined for the first time ever. This is a year in the making with Taggart Kent, otherwise known as Tag on TikTok and X, formerly Twitter. Thank you for joining us, Tag.
Of course, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on. This has been a year in the making. I think you accidentally, maybe not accidentally, but you followed me when I had like 200 followers and I
Yeah.
made some video about the Cowboys and I was like, I know who that guy is. Let
Yeah,
me...
I remember that for sure. I do remember that you messaged me and you're like, man, you realize you followed me, right? And I was like, I really didn't know. I just followed a guy who was making Cowboys content, solid Cowboys content at that. Like again, you can follow him on social media as well on X. And why don't you go ahead and just share where they can find you to start this exclusive interview right now?
Yeah, it's gonna be Taggart Kent, Taggartkent on Twitter or X, as you hear my dog whining, begging for attention. Jeez. And TikTok as well. Quit it. And then on YouTube, it's gonna be Taggy, Tagggyk.
All right, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your introduction to sports, what you're trying to do in college, and what do you want to do for your career, basically.
Yeah, so I've always wanted to be kind of like I wanted to work in sports journalism. That's when I moved to the university. Dude, I'm gonna have to restart. Rocket, do you need to go outside? Okay. All right. I've always wanted to work in sports journalism. That's the reason I moved up to Denton to come to the University of North Texas because they had a really good journalism program. And around like my junior year, I I was looking at everybody else's resumes and track records and what they were kind of doing to get into the industry, and I got really drunk on the Super Bowl and I sat down and I thought to myself, man, I am not doing anything. And so I decided something needed to change. I needed to make some type of step towards making a career in sports possible. And so I decided to start a TikTok. I started thinking about the landscape of sports media in general and how it's so personality driven and how people follow you and your brand more than they do actual like conglomerates anymore, like ESPN, Fox. People don't watch ESPN because it's ESPN. We're watching for Stephen A. Smith. We don't watch Fox for Fox. We watch Colin Cowherd. And so I figured the best way to go about it at that point was because I was so behind on school kind of things in terms of joining the school newspaper or the school television program. I decided TikTok and YouTube were the best way to go about it. And to be honest, I thought nothing was going to come of it. And then I posted a video about Micah Parsons where I was crashing out about the Cowboys run defense. And then all of a sudden, people started following me and wanting to hear from me. And now I'm almost 10,000, which is nice, and 1.5K on Twitter.
Yeah, man. And you talk about that YouTube page you're doing. Explain like what you're trying to do on that YouTube, because it's not exactly like, long videos, but it's not exactly short as well. You're making good content right there. What are you doing on YouTube?
A lot of it is like me just wanting to make more drawn out takes that I've made on TikTok. I have a series called An Honest Conversation where I'll go and I'll watch a player's film and I'll analyze them as unbiased as possible, which is funny because I feel like the only two players I've done I'm extremely biased on in Anthony Richardson and Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I still try to go into it and analyze the players as unbiased and as possible. And then I like to go over little things that I just little takes that I have that I want to dive deeper into than I could on TikTok in a 2 minute video. And so it feels like almost a personal account rather than, actually going over the NFL. But as the NFL season gets into a swing, it'll be a lot more NFL takes and NFL content.
Do you deal with like a little bit of anxiousness before you're about to post any of these videos, whether it be on, TikTok or YouTube? Because I feel that sometimes a little bit, even with a tweet, but how does it feel when you're about to post something, say on TikTok, where you've grown so much in the past year to about 9K followers, I think I saw last. Do you feel a little bit anxious when you post something on these big platforms now?
I used to, when I first started, I was really like the idea of 600,000 people seeing and hearing your voice and seeing your face is it's a little jarring at first, and then you kind of get used to it, and then people kind of get used to seeing you and hearing you, and they start to like you or they start to hate you, and it becomes like it's almost like a job, and I'm more anxious that a video will or won't do well than I am posting it. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I'm not as nervous of like, oh man, what are people going to think? I'm just nervous like, can this video do well, please? Because especially recently, I feel like the algorithms had me in jail.
Man,
Um,
it's crazy now. It's not as easy as it used to be like pre-COVID or even during COVID.
mhm.
It's insane.
Yeah, there's such like a there people tell me there's an exact science to this stuff, and I'm just like, I don't know if I'm smart enough to figure that out.
All right, man, let's dive a little bit into America's team. The Dallas Cowboys just
Yes,
wrapped up
please.
their draft this past weekend. Had a few picks. New regime for Brian Schottenheimer. He's assigned Clayton Adams as his OC, more of like a run game coordinator in a way. Matt Eberflus, and a hire I'm very excited for from the Chicago Bears, former head coach. Before that, DC of the Indianapolis Colts. Generally speaking, how do you grade these draft picks overall?
Um, you want me to go like pick by pick or just the full draft as a
Just
whole?
just the full thing as a whole for the
The full
Cowboys.
draft as a whole, I gave an A minus. I thought it was very impressive as we see
Hmm.
special guest Rocket. So I'll let him out. All right, should be no more distractions. The whole draft I gave an A minus as a whole. There was a lot of picks I liked in here, especially down the board. Maybe I don't know if you saw, I freaked out over the second round pick Donovan Ezeraku, just because I'm
Yeah.
not the biggest fan of Ezeraku as a player. But as I kind of calmed down, I realized that there are elements of his game that I like, and I kind of looked at the board in retrospect, and I was like, he's probably just the best player on the board, even if I'm not the biggest fan of him. At 44, that's a pretty good pick. Siobhan Rebel is one of the steals of the draft. That was a top 25 player for me. It might have been top 30. I think I might have had him at 28. And so to get him in the third round is insane. Jaden Blue is a very good player as well. Fast, speedy running back that I feel like we've needed for years. And
Oh
then
yes.
down the
Yeah.
board, Phil Maffa as like a thunder to his lightning is intriguing as well. One thing I will say I'm confused about though, Tyler Booker and a Johnny Cornelius, our first round pick and our sixth round pick, offensive guard, offensive tackle. Both of those guys are really strong, but they're not all that athletic. And so for a team that runs zone, inside zone and wide zone, I'm a little interested to see how they go moving forward because those are two gap scheme offensive linemen. And so inserting them into a zone running scheme is a little interesting. Tyler Booker, I can get because he's such a good pass protector. There's four other dudes on the offensive line who are insanely athletic. I feel like you can hide them. And I guess a Johnny Cornelius is just a depth pickup, but an interesting depth pickup at that.
Do you have any concern about a guy like Revel who, has gone through injury concerns? Do you view it as injury concerns because it's a young ACL injury that he
Yeah.
had that kept him out ahead of the draft? Do you think that's a risky pick? But I mean, like you said, it was a third round pick. I guess it's a gamble that paid off. What do you think about that when you factor his injuries?
Yeah, I mean, I understand the injury concerns, the same thing with like Will Johnson and Josh Simmons, but we're living in the age of modern medicine. The ACL injury isn't exactly what it was when
Yeah.
Derrick Rose was running around, you know what I mean? I don't really think like it's the end of his career. Maybe he's not ready day one, which the Cowboys kind of need a corner that's ready day one. It's funny, two corners, Siobhan Revel and Trayvon Diggs are both questionable day one, but you're not drafting just for their rookie year. You're drafting these players hopefully to become 10-year Cowboys, and I think Siobhan Rebel has that potential. He's super long. He's like a prototypical 2025 corner, long, athletic, and he fits well in Flus's scheme, which is a lot of cover three, cover four. We're dropping seven in coverage, rushing four. He's got those kind of chops. And one of the more interesting things too is I feel like it gives the opportunity, if he's good, to have him on one side, Diggs on the other, and we can move Deron Bland back to the slot because we did lose Jordan Lewis, and so slot corner is something that is going to be a need. And if he ends up being good, Deron Bland can kick back in there to, I guess, his more natural role.
When it comes to Donovan Ezeraku, is it about his speed? Is it about his bend to you? What is it that made you like draw a little bit of pause, like specifically?
His speed is what is concerning and his kind of change of direction in the open field because his bend is absurd. I said this in a TikTok and I said this to another person I was talking about this about. He has probably the deepest back of all the edge rushers in the class. He's got the second or third best bend, depending on what you think of Mike Green. I'd put it ahead of Mike Green. And he had 16 and a half sacks at Boston College, which is a Power Four school. If he was really this great of an athlete, like people said he was, say he is, he would not have been available at pick 44. But that is a little bit of a concern with him. And so I wonder what the upside looks there. But we don't have a pass rusher on the edge outside of Micah that's like remotely dangerous. So I understand the thought process behind going a high floor prospect, someone that I don't think there's a world where Ezraku is horrible. I don't know if there's a world where he's ever like this game wrecker, but as a designated pass rusher, maybe not designated, but as a rotational pass rusher, I think he can absolutely have an impact to day one. And I'm not as angry or frustrated as I was when the pick was first made when I saw the name.
You don't want to count Dante Fowler? You don't want to count Fowler coming
I
back?
forgot we brought him back.
Hey, maybe he
His
can learn
old
under.
ass.
Yeah, he's an old man now, but he's back from Dan Quinn's Washington Commanders.
Oh,
Of course, that was, you could say a big loss at the
mhm.
time. I felt I was a little bit salty towards Dan Quinn on his way out, going in that Packers game, had to change up his scheme a little bit to fit Stephon Gilmore's injury. So it was just an all-around disaster for that Cowboys team, as we all remember that tragic, tragic day that they got destroyed at home against the Green Bay Packers in the playoffs. But man, looks like we're bringing back Dante Fowler. Shades of that Dan Quinn defense coming back a little bit after a career high 11 and a half career sack, 11 and a half season sack total this past year with the Washington Commanders, who really stunned the entire league and went to the
Totally
NFC
put.
Championship. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I know you weren't exactly digging the Commanders hype, especially after that defeat that they had against the Cowboys in that first divisional game, right?
Yeah. I won't say I'm a hater of them, but I did have some beef with their fans over a video I made, which I felt like I was praising them the entire time. And then I said maybe they're not quite 7-2 good. And they were in the comments, they let me hear it. And I was like,
Oh
all right.
yeah. Oh yeah.
I will say though, seventh round pick, you bring up that run defense. Seventh round pick, Jay Toai. I watched him very briefly yesterday morning after having a conversation with another friend of mine. Big boy, hard to move. This is a team that desperately needs some run defense help in the interior. Maybe he ends up being something. You know, you don't ever hope of anything much from a seventh round pick, but yeah, 6'2", 340 pounds. He's a big dude, and you can tell when you watch UCLA.
I loved your analysis of the running back picks, especially with Jaden Blue and Maffa being, lightning and thunder. Blue, I'm a Texas Longhorn fan, been since I was a little boy. It was cool to watch him in the flesh. He had fumble issues, I will say. Ball security
Yeah,
could be an issue, especially going to the next level. That's what I had an issue with this past season. But of course, he can have he has big game ability, is what I'm trying to say. So
yeah. Good
big
hands
break
too.
ability of sure, for sure, especially in the Ohio State game as
Hmm.
well. You saw him have those two receiving touchdowns, and Phil Maffa saw him in the flesh as well. Pretty decent running back. Didn't have a great game against the Longhorns, but he's a great big running back who can bring more power. Young guy, of course, coming from the draft. I do like these picks for now. Do you see Javonte Williams in this receiving core, running back core rather, staying for a while, or do you see these guys developing under them for a minute and then finally getting their chance in 2 or 3 years maybe?
Knowing the Cowboys, they're I feel like the first couple weeks they're definitely rolling out with Miles Sanders and Javonte Williams, but I think the youth of Jaden Blue and Phil Maffa quickly makes them realize, hey, let's not bring out these old people and let's get a lot more younger. Yeah, Jaden Blue and Phil Moffitt, don't think either of them are ever bell cow backs, but if they want to go this running
hmm
back by committee thing, that's a duo that I think could absolutely be formidable. They both have talent and anything but Javonte Williams snaps, please.
I mean, this hire of Clayton Adams specifically, I mean, it just tells me they want to value the run game again, especially with Brian Schottenheimer, who's had history with the run game with the Seattle Seahawks, running by committee. When you look at this Tyler Booker pick, of course, they wanted to go this route rather than receiver and taking like Matthew Golden in the first round. Them valuing the run game, do you value that pick more, or did you want a receiver in the first 2 rounds initially? I don't remember what your board looked like, but did you like this Booker pick as the
I,
first round pick?
I was okay with it. Funny enough, you said maybe they're valuing the run game. I think this is valuing pass protection because that's what Tyler Booker is really good at. And we
Mhm.
have Brock Hoffman and TJ Bass who are already they're pretty good as run blockers. Our run rushing attack got really good once Zach Martin stepped out and one of those two stepped in. But they're not that great in pass pro. And I think that's the idea behind the Tyler Booker pick is let's get somebody that can protect Dak. I gave the individual pick a B just because again, I've been begging the Cowboys to find somebody who can stop the run for years. And so Shamar Stewart and Kenneth Grant were on the board. I really wanted Shamar Stewart. Shamar Stewart, truther. I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about him, but even
Right.
Kenneth Grant would have
Right.
been awesome. That's a dude who, both of those guys, day one are the best run defenders on the team. I hate this idea that Shamar Stewart is a developmental prospect. He's a developmental pass rusher. Day one, he's stratospheres above the rest of that defensive line as a run defender, and it's not even close. But I saw the Tyler Booker pick, kind of thought about it. I don't hate the idea of bringing in a pass protecting offensive guard to replace Zach Martin. It is a hole at the end of the day, even if it's not the biggest one. And I am kind of happy they didn't overdraft a receiver. I felt like one of the Matthew Goldens or the Emeka Egbukas of the world. I know a lot of people like Golden, good player. I don't know if he's quite worth it at 12, but it's just a little confusing. They didn't go wide receiver at all in this draft.
And say I was just about to ask that too, because we've seen these past few seasons, the Cowboys and their wide receiver core, besides CeeDee Lamb, have been struggling to get separation
Yeah.
in the open field. And I expected at least, one or two receiver picks. I mean, do you agree with them not having at least one, just not even one receiving pick? Because
No,
you now have, yeah,
the
go
fact they
ahead,
didn't
sir.
even take a shot is
It's
mind
nasty.
blowing. Yeah. Maybe they end up trading for somebody, sign Keenan Allen or Amari Cooper back, but yeah, no, the idea that they didn't take a single dart throw is confusing because that room you're looking at Jalen Tolbert, Kevontae Turpin, Jonathan Mingo, and Ryan Flournoy and Jalen Brooks.
Man.
It's not exactly the Bengals wide receiver core. Yeah, I didn't get that at all.
And it blows my mind too, because you say they can go out and get somebody and they might, trade for somebody, but how many times have we seen that in our lifetimes of them going all in as they say they tried to go
Yeah,
and
once.
end up just being okay with quote unquote their guys?
Hmm.
I don't know if I'm confident they're going to try to find a guy like Keenan Allen, who, by the way, I didn't realize at the time of the draft night that he was a free agent and that he wasn't necessarily with the Bears anymore, and that's why they ended up going after receiver again. So I guess I mean this grade of picks, I thought it was a pretty good night, as you were saying. You said A minus, right?
Yeah,
I'll probably agree like B plus, A minus in that area. Overall, a really good draft. You don't see this Cowboys team really mess up drafts for the most part, but it is going to be hard trying to replace Zach Martin for sure, future Hall of Famer. Of course, dealing with injuries more than he really ever had these past two seasons. When you think about Zach Martin's impact, what comes to mind first for you?
I mean, just the cleanness of his game, the lack of penalties, the consistency that he brought to the game, the attitude that he brought, like that was more as he delved into the end of his career. You really start to see that like he wasn't just this great player, he was this great person and leader, and that's important when you're talking about teams. Obviously, we have Dak, and it's important that your quarterback has that kind of impact in the locker room. But having a big boy in the trenches it's important to have that kind of impact as well. And that's why I'm so excited about the Tyler Booker pick because he seems like he can have that kind of impact. He seems like he loves the game of football, like he can be a great leader. There are some people, not some people, but the quarterback doesn't get touched. It's the pretty boy, it's the rich dude. We need somebody who's getting down and dirty every rep, who is willing to lead the locker room and be a leader of men. And that's one of the hidden impacts that Zach Martin played for this team over the past decade, not just being a great football player. So if Tyler Booker can be even half of a Hall of Famer on the field and be as great of a person and a leader off of it, I mean, I think we're looking at a home run 12th overall pick, even if it's maybe a reach.
Yeah, man, I got chills in that post-draft interview I think he had with Micah. Man, that's what you want to see from an
And
offensive
it's
lineman. That's exactly what you want to see. And Michael wasn't exactly receptive to the pick, it seemed
Mhm.
initially, because he was looking for, some help in his linebacker core and on the edge. But he eventually got in the second round, and Donovan Ezaraku, the ACC DPOY. But Tyler Booker, I'm looking forward to it, as you call the wall of Tyler now. Tyler Smith, Tyler Guyton, now Tyler Booker on this offensive line. No more Travis Frederick, no more Tyron Smith, and officially no more Zach Martin. End of an era on this Cowboys offensive line. You really hate to see it because, man, I enjoyed watching that offensive line get to work.
Yeah, hopefully the start of a new one. Imagine we kept Tyler Biotish, just four
Oh,
Tylers.
man. That would have been awesome. I had nothing against Tyler Biadasz, to be honest with you. I didn't know he was gonna, go to Washington with Dan Quinn, but good to see him doing well over there. And
Yeah.
let's see what they can do with the division in a few months. But that's gonna wrap up our exclusive interview with Taggart Kent, otherwise known as Tag on TikTok and X, formerly Twitter. He also has a YouTube account. Go ahead and shout out real quick before we get out of here again.
Taggart Kent, as you said, Taggartkent, TikTok and Twitter. And then on YouTube, it's Taggy, Taggyyk. But you could just also look up my name and it'll come up.
All right, Tag. Thanks for having us. Thanks for being on in the show on the podcast in episode 65. This was Taggart Kent.